Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's My Games Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're going to be talking about building a strong pipeline for your business so that you can sleep at night. Now, speaking of sleeping yesterday, the big head guy over here drank a lot of caffeine on our day out. How are you feeling, Big Mike, today?
Well, I'm okay. My teeth itch. Yeah, we ran our masterclass yesterday, all in a hotel room, just sorting out the whole 7 pillars thing. And I love them. We had 12 people there, 12 business leaders, and I love them. But man, it stresses me out. Caffeine, I find, helps. I don't drink caffeine ever. So I was buzzed last night. I tell you, mate. It's like at 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I must go to sleep soon. But I'm okay today. I'm all right. I'm drinking water today, so we're good. Yeah.
Just water, decaf tea today, some herbal teas maybe for you, for an old man. Okay, Big Mike. So today, obviously, we're talking about building a strong, put my teeth back in, a strong pipeline for business. Now, I, as do some of the viewers watching this probably, know that we speak about 2 different types of pipeline. So which one are we talking about today?
Oh no, most people have got no clue that there's 2 types of pipeline, and I'm not blithering on about that. But there are 2
because
types.
you've made them.
I'm not being all like, "Hey, I know and you don't," and please don't think that. But in all my experience of working with recruiters and non-recruiters, when they talk about pipeline, they're actually talking about a thing called a revenue pipeline, right? So a revenue pipeline is the answer to 3 questions: how much, how soon, how likely. Okay, so that's right. So effectively, it's about a piece of work. If we get that work, then it's worth this much money to us. It's likely to drop in this month, next month, the month after, whatever. And we're 1, 2, or 3. Very likely to get it, quite possibly get it, not likely to get it. And that's pretty much it. You can put a percentage on it if you want, but whatever, right? That's what a revenue pipeline is. Relationship pipeline, and we're going to come back to that in a second, I know. Relationship pipeline is much longer term, and it's about using strategic business development to come up with prospects and then cultivate them towards becoming a client, as it says there. So it's much longer term, and it's weirdly a more dependable predictor of what business you'll be doing next year. Because the thing with revenue pipelines is they're very short term. I mean, well, they're as short term as your clients decide in advance that they're going to want to hire someone.
Yeah, some people are very quick on that from an external point of view.
Yeah, I would say really that with a revenue pipeline, I'm just going to dig a little deeper in there for you as well, because it's really important that you do have one. But with a revenue pipeline, you're probably looking at a window of 3 months, really. Realistically, it's going to be 1 or 2 months. And so, what you need to do for yourself, if you're a solopreneur, or if you've got a little team, is if you want visibility, you can basically produce a forecast. It's just a dead simple spreadsheet, basically. And you have 3 tabs. One tab is for the ones on their own, the very likelies. The second tab is for the ones and the twos. That's the very likelies and the probablys. And the third tab is for all 3. The very likelies, the possibles, and the, well, maybe nots, right? So you've basically got 3 versions of the truth. And what happens is going to be somewhere in there, really. And over time, if you do that, particularly if you actually record what actually happened. So a salesman says, yeah, got this role coming up next month, and it's for a fee, it's for a 10 grand fee, and yeah, I'm probably going to get that. Yeah, right. And then you record what actually happens against that opportunity. Then you can begin to track the credibility of your salespeople. Shall I call it that, Kirsty? What do you think?
I think yes, but you can also, I think, diagnose where things are, because they're saying it's really likely, and if it doesn't pull off, then something in those stages of converting them has gone wrong. And if you monitor it in this sort of way and a little bit better, you can sort of say like, oh, it's there. That's the area that we need to
you don't need, if you think, oh, that's a load of bother, I've got 6 people and I can't be asked to ask them all the time, when because they're not going to tell me, I've got to ask them, right? So you might get it off CRM if they fill CRM in.
Big if there.
Shouldn't laugh really, but no, but if you fill CRM in, then you can quite often get that data from that. But what's important is that visibility. And the visibility comes from opportunities. Now, okay, we all get bluebirds that phone call that comes in, and oh, really, I need a so and so yesterday. Can you get me one? Well, there's no prediction for that, right? But again, you can record the number of those that happen and the size of them, the frequency of them. So you can, when you do your plans, you can put that if you want to. It depends on how often it happens, obviously, and how dependable that is. But as an average, you can say, well, on average, each quarter we get X amount from bluebirds, or every 6 months if that's the frequency, whatever.
I don't want to be building my business on bluebirds, though.
No, that's the base level. Right? So that's,
right.
You can always put that into the spreadsheet. So we just get that, right? On top of that, we're then building these 3 models.
Okay.
The very likelies, because we can depend on that. That's, we're going to get those, right? The middle ones, which are the very likelies plus the possibles, and then the very long termers at the far end,
Okay.
So
we have actually had a comment on that from Barry, which I think I want to bring in here. Barry's saying, don't just measure your likely revenue, measure your forecasting.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Barry. That's what I'm saying. And unless I've got this wrong from you, I believe that's to be true. But the way in which you do that is you record what actually happened against what you were told. Right. So you got a bunch of salespeople out there, consultants, or however you work, your BDMs, whatever. You got a bunch of people out there doing what they do, and they're making predictions to you. Now, some of those predictions are from brand new clients, targets they're going for. Some of those predictions are from existing clients or lapsed clients that they're talking to, and there's another opportunity cropping up. Now, you normally find if it's a brand new client, the prediction will be less accurate. So you do need to record that against the opportunity. Because what you're basically talking about is opportunities here. Opportunity, I don't know what they call them on CRM system these days, but opportunity. And then against that opportunity, you put the how much, how soon, how likely, and then you record what happens. Because then you can do some analysis, because that forecast is not one thing. It's as many salespeople as you have.
Yeah.
And so some people will be remarkably accurate. Supposing you've got a consultant who deals predominantly with existing clients, the chances are their predictions will be very much more accurate than somebody who's predominantly around bringing in, they're a hunter, they go out and they bring in business from elsewhere. Their predictions will be less accurate. I'll tell you that right now.
And I imagine as well, there's a certain level of experience being involved here. Those who are more experienced salespeople will probably understand when people are really serious and stuff and when they're not. And then the newer, less experienced people will be like, no, they take my call every single time. We're definitely going to win money here, that kind of thing.
And also the type matters. So if you're going for an exclusive or retained, you might have a different, you certainly have a different land rate. If you win a retained piece of work, you're pretty much 99%. Well, I don't know what your conversion rates are, but you're very, very likely to convert that, obviously. Whereas if you're going contingent, you have 1 in 5 chance of getting that. So obviously, there's a difference there. So you can plot that as well to make sure that's part of it. I mean, wherever possible, go for retained or exclusive for sure. Yeah. But I think we're going to have an episode just on that fairly soon.
A couple of people have asked me about it.
Winning retained work, because there's a lot of hokum pokum around that, but it's not that difficult really if you've got things set up properly. Anyway, but the point is on this is a revenue pipeline. Everybody should have one. It's dead easy.
These big 3
levels. You've got how much, how soon, how likely. Then you plot what actually happened, and you begin then to almost put a degree of predictability. When they say that, it doesn't always happen, right? So you can then, and as you say, Kirsty, you can begin to diagnose to get people to be more accurate in their predictions. Because I don't think necessarily salespeople lie. I really don't think it's that.
I think they get very excited
and optimistic. They become optimistic. Salespeople are very optimistic, and so therefore, obviously, they're saying they genuinely believe it, but they really haven't gathered all the data, and the data that they've got is overshadowed by their enthusiasm and desire to make some money. So whatever.
Okay.
But this is important. But in reality, everybody does that, or everybody should do that, and it's easy.
Yes,
it's not difficult at all.
Yeah.
It only gives you a very short-term view of the world, though. On average, 2 months, 3 if you're lucky. Well, as a business owner, I don't think that's enough. So the second type of pipeline is called a relationship pipeline. There it is, right? As we said, and that's how we're cultivating high-value prospects, i.e., prospects who will turn into high-value clients, into clients. That's what we want. And we're cultivating them. I'm going to talk about that in a second, how that works. But whereas tactical business development mostly comes from existing clients, so that's account management. Tactical BD, which is like specking or yeah, vacancy scraping, looking for vacancies out there. It's a very of the moment. If you've got a piece of work or not, you've got a vacancy or not, right? But some of it will also come from strategic business development, longer term relationship that just drop. You get to that stage where they say, well, I'll give you a chance. So then it drops into your revenue pipeline.
Okay.
What we're interested in here is really important now. What we're interested in a relationship pipeline is what happens before it drops into the revenue pipeline, because that can give us a lot more visibility and therefore predictability of not only how much business we'll do, say, later in this year, but also next year. Seriously, you can get that kind of view on it. And I think in a business, that's really important, because you can make decisions now which will affect what will happen in 3, 6, 9, 12 months. But you can't make that decision in 3, 6 or 9 or 12 months. You've got to do it now. And this gives you that lead time, that visibility to think, whoa, hang on. We haven't got enough people in our relationship pipeline, so we're going to be a bit short of high value clients. And just on this high value clients piece, right? We just move on this, right? We're talking about strategic BD. If you're interested in the difference between tactical and strategic BD, we've done a show on this. Kirsty's just going to pop the link into the comments, and if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the, is it the comments or the description?
It'll be both. I'll put it in the description and the comments on both. So if you come
back
at
the end, you should, because that tells you how you feed these pipelines. I'm going to dig into the relationship pipeline feed a little bit more detail for you in a second. But the whole point of this is that you have that visibility, right? And if you don't have a revenue pipeline, a relationship pipeline, it's going to be very difficult for you to make those predictions into the future.
Things are going to happen to you that are going to take you by surprise, that your business isn't going to be prepared for. Like you say, you may not have enough people, you may not have the structures in place, you may not have the technology in place or whatever. And then normally what happens is, as we speak about yo-yo companies, your service level is going to drop, or you're going to miss out on work because you're not
just too reactive, not enough proactivity. And last week we were talking about the mentality of a leader rather than a recruiter, and there is this longevity, there is this looking more into the future. Didn't catch last week's show, well worth it, right? Because it's all about leadership and not the Ponzi stuff, the real stuff that matters, right? But it is about this long term, this visibility into the future, more patient planning for a longer term. This is part of that. Who wouldn't want to know what business they're probably going to be doing next year? Picture this, right? Well, just want you to think for a second of your most valuable client. And then I want you to type that into the comments. No, just joking. I don't. I mean, that's the joke, right? No, just want you to think of your most valuable client, right? How amazing would it be on your revenues and therefore profits if you had 2 new ones of those every year? Just 2. Think for a second, right? Just put, if you get a chance, a little comment in the comments just to say, just put a percentage, what you think, what percentage it would be. Would it increase it by, would it double the figures? Would it increase them by 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%? If you had 2 more of your best clients added every single year. That's what strategic business development is all about. It doesn't land vast amounts of clients like tactical BD does, but it lands the big ones, the high value ones, and the ones that you're focusing on. They're high value. You're going for them, right? That's why we need a relationship pipeline.
Okay.
Because if we don't have that, you as the leader have got no idea what's happening in your high value, in your strategic business development. You've got no clue.
Okay.
And I think really, and it's interesting really when you think about this as a leader, that's what I really want to know, right? So let's talk about what that looks like.
1 second before we've had a couple of questions. So Tori's asked a really good question. What does BD acronym stand for? And
business development. So it's a euphemism, really. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's a business development. It's a euphemism, really, for sales. So if you think about the different functions there are in recruitment, one of them is the hunter, and the hunter goes for tactical business development or strategic business development. Short-term revenue, long-term high-value clients. They're different, but it's BD, right? Business development, bringing new clients. Okay, so
okay, and
right,
so let's go on to this. We have got another question that I want to come to at the end, Mike. So let's now talk a little bit about what a relationship pipeline actually looks like.
Okay, so relationship pipelines, in a revenue pipeline, you can have the client, and then the hiring manager, and then put something that describes the opportunity, like the job title or something to, oh yeah, I know what that is, right? And then how much they're so likely, and then you can track what actually happens at the end of it, so you can then, yeah, okay. For this, you've got the company, and you've got either the decision maker or hiring manager, almost certainly the decision maker, the person that decides whether you are going to do business with that client or not. They may also be the hiring manager at the end of it. They may not. They may be the HR director. And therefore, when you're on the list, you can then access the hiring managers, or you then get access, if you're so minded, to the resource team, the TAs, or whatever it might be, whatever the situation is, right? So, but it's the decision maker, the person that's going to say, yes, you can, no, you can't, right? And what you need to do is I'm going to simplify this a little bit. So when we do this in our program, in our breakthrough program, it's a little bit more sophisticated. So if you've got our online stuff and you've watched these videos, that's not what he says. I'm doing this because it's simple.
That's we've only got kind of 15, 20 minutes to do it.
That's simple. 3 things, right? So each of those prospects goes through 3 stages in reality. Aware is the first one, right? Oh, they've got them all on there, right? So awareness is the first one. It means that you're aware of them and they're aware of you. Typically, that comes mostly online. So, or it could be that someone's made an introduction for you and you've just had a little email exchange, perhaps. It's not gone any further than that. But
were you connected on LinkedIn, maybe?
Connected on LinkedIn, yeah, that's an awareness. Just if they could be bothered, they know you exist, right? That's all it is. Whereas, let's look at the stage before that. You found someone on LinkedIn and you think, oh, really like them as a client, or you've seen a company in somebody's CV and you thought, oh, that's interesting. They obviously use those skills. Never heard of them before. I was talking to a client this morning that discovered in Birmingham there's a £350 million manufacturing business they had no clue existed. And it was only when another candidate mentioned them and he looked them up. Oh my God, there's this thing. It doesn't matter. You know about them,
but they're
not aware of you, right? Yeah. So an awareness means connected on LinkedIn, some kind of vague interaction, but whatever.
Yeah.
Engagement means effectively that you are interacting now.
Again, is this social media based?
No, anything really. So social media predominantly, so you're commenting on their stuff, they're commenting on yours. If you run events, which I recommend that everybody does, they tune into the events, they come on them, they come on your workshops, they listen to your LinkedIn Live. So everybody who's listening to this, if you're in my relationship pipeline, will be in probably as engaged, because you're engaging with the content, you're engaging with me. We're not talking about business. You're not saying, Mike, come and tell me what you do or anything. That's the next spot, the dialogue spot, really. That's where we're at. But it's just an engagement. There's interaction is probably a more accurate word, I suppose.
So it's a bit more like a conversation, whereas awareness is very sort of like they're there. I could probably recognize the voice if someone said, but this engaged element is mostly a conversation that's happening.
Well, awareness is just usually one event that says, right. Oh yeah, that proves that they know who I am. So it could be like an invitation to connect on LinkedIn. You invite them to connect, they say, yeah, that's fine. They're aware of me, or they comment on your LinkedIn post, but it's only one comment. Yeah, okay, they're aware of me. Well, it's just an awareness. They know you exist.
Right.
You might not be at the front of their thoughts, except that, but they know you exist. Now, dialogue is where we want to be, because now we're talking, and we might not start talking about business, about supplying to them, but we're in a dialogue, which is going to be a mixture of some in online interactions, around LinkedIn, probably some emails exchange between us, WhatsApp messages, text messages, phone calls. We may even see them.
So is this where in person sort of first appears during the dialogue stage?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we gradually move, through internet, through telephony, Teamsy, Zoom stuff, up to seeing someone in person. Okay. And so it's a dialogue process, it's a relationship building process, which is they're aware of us, we're aware of them, we probably start that dialogue around content. Certainly if you follow our methodology, because content is something that people can be interested in without saying, I want to buy from you.
Mm.
Okay, so that's fine. I mean, you guys are watching this now, and I'm not trying to sell you anything, and you're not asking to buy anything. We're cool, but we're in some sort of dialogue. You know, you're watching this stuff, and so it's you move from awareness to dialogue, and your job is to switch the dialogue away from content to, can I tell you what we do?
Right.
Can I explain to you what we do? Can I understand a little bit more about where you're at?
Your position.
And I want to talk about I mean, we talk in recruitment in the Flair stuff about a flavor of recruitment. You know, people buy a flavor of recruitment. People buy a flavor of everything, quite frankly. And most recruiters are 98% the same, quite frankly. We think we're not, but we are. What we're interested in is the 2%, which is different. We promote that because that's your flavor. That's the thing that makes yours different. So we want to, during this dialogue stage, we want to be feeding our dialogue, feeding in our flavor of recruitment to people. So people begin to realize what our value set is, say. And again, I'm going to do a whole show on flavor of recruitment. Oh, you lucky people, right? But I won't spill the beans now too much, but you're going to be putting that forward gradually in layers. So eventually they kind of get you, and they either want to buy into that, i.e. that flavor to their taste, or it isn't. Well, fine.
Okay.
You know, it's a pyramid. Don't forget, this is more to do with high value clients, not about getting a vacancy.
Right. So this is about creating a relationship where you can get long-term or like repeat business.
Yeah, right. So let me define a high value client. We did this yesterday, didn't we? Do you remember?
We did on the day, yeah.
We asked people what a high value client looked like, and bizarrely enough, we got 5 different kind of bullet points. And bizarrely enough, they came up with pretty much all of them. So it's someone that values their suppliers. So in other words, if people do ring him up and say, "Give us a job," they say, "No, we got suppliers. Thank you very much. We're okay. No, thank you very much." Right. So they're a bit harder to reach. That's usually an indicator. They have the kind of requirements that you can fill. Right. So they're not obscure, weird ones. They're good ones. They're the kind of client that wants to deal in the way you like to deal. So if you want to do exclusive or retain, they're up for that. They'll pay you the money that you think that you're worth, and they'll pay it on time, as someone said yesterday. Right. And finally, they either place one really big deal with you once a year, or they post some smaller vacancies with you, but more often. In other words, the value of the site ongoing is going to be repeated.
The lifetime value is high.
The lifetime value, the LTV, right? So it's not just going to be a one-off $3,000 and we move on. What's the point of that then, really? So a high value client has a steady stream of revenue coming in, right, one way or the other. Well, that definition of a high value client, imagine that probably relates to that client I said to you, oh, just imagine a really high value client. Kind of ticks all of those boxes probably. Well, they're hard to get, but you don't need too many of them. You know, a couple of those would make a really big difference to you. So that's what strategic business development does.
Okay.
And the relationship pipeline tracks, starting off with that 100 prospects that you had, tracks down to the 2 that you're going to convert next year.
Okay. And that's, sorry, so like on this, the relationship stage, the way that this sort of links to the revenue pipeline is you would take them through this awareness, engage, dialogue, and then when you've moved it towards the more corporate, like working together dialogue, here at the end,
the deal. When they start talking about a deal, really,
right? That then becomes when they would drop into the revenue.
Yeah. No, it drops into the revenue pipeline then, right? So we've gone through all this process, and someone says, "Well, okay, I'll give you a chance." Right? That's still not in the revenue pipeline, obviously, because you can't answer the 3 questions: how much, how soon, how likely. But then they say, "Right, we've got a role. You want to work on this? All right, then we'll give you a chance." Okay, well, okay, how much, how soon, how likely, right? And then you can stick it into your revenue pipeline, and it disappears from your relationship pipeline. It's done its job then. It's found its mark. You're okay. You're good. So the only people in the relationship pipeline are new prospects that you haven't dealt with, that you're cultivating and getting them closer and closer and closer to becoming a client, giving you a chance, basically. Now, if you can put people through a relationship pipeline that will put you onto a PSL, so you have permission to supply, basically. That's what that means. That still stays in the relationship pipeline until somebody says, here's a role to work on. Mm-hmm. So what you should do is when you get a client, so say, okay, yeah, you're on the PSL, you should then have what's called a deployment plan or a D plan. What the D plan does is identifies all the hiring managers and gets you access to them and starts you building a relationship with them, because just because you're on the list doesn't necessarily mean to say you're going to get any vacancies.
As you found out to your own detriment.
We were put on years and years ago, DHL. We were put on their list from cold call, straight in, did it, got on. I thought, well, that's it then. I'm waiting for the requirements to come. They didn't come. We got kicked off. And a year later, they just threw us off, no business. And I said, why did you do that? He said, well, didn't place anyone. Yeah, but no one gave us any vacancies. Well, no, but it's your job to go and get the vacancies. Duh. You know, that was my bad. So now deployment plan stops that from happening. D plan, very important. Account map, you know, anyway, so.
Okay, Mike, I have got a couple of questions that I want to bring up, and then we're going to have to round off, I'm afraid. I know you could speak about this for hours. So Gemma's asked a really good question, which is, how many clients would you suggest you have on your I'm assuming that's relationship pipeline list to begin with? Yeah,
the conversion ratios do depend on many, many factors. But if you wanted a rule of thumb, typically, if you went out to 100 prospects, you'll get nowhere with 50 of them at all. So 50% zero. 50% will move into the awareness, so they'll acknowledge your existence, right? You know, for whatever reason, particularly if you're using an AIDA campaign. This data comes from AIDA campaigns. Of that, 45%, for whatever reason, it's not the right time now. Either it's not the right time now, but call me in 2 months, right? About half of them, 30, sort of half of that, 45%, you know, 22% of the overall. The others, it's nothing now, got nothing in the future, but keep in touch, because I kind of like what you're saying. I'm kind of liking the flavour that you're putting forward here. I only got a bit of a taste of it, but I kind of like it really. And then 5%, come and talk to me. Then you have to convert them, right? The killer is, of course, is during the cultivation stage, some of that forgotten 45% that we talked about, the maybe but not now, will drop into the, yeah, okay, give us a shout, right? So in answer to your question, it's going to depend on you, the strength of your proposition, your ability to attract people in, which is your content. There's a whole bunch of variables, which I obviously don't know, Gemma, in your case. But what the interesting thing is, when you collect this data, after a while, you can predict what's going to happen for you personally. You don't have to go with my general statistics. You can actually find out. Then you can begin to predict what's going to happen next year. And if you need to put more prospects in the hopper to get more clients out, you can. It's so cool.
It's just conversion ratios that you can work with. Okay. With that, thank you for that, Gemma. I hope that answered your question. Gavin said that he understands that apparently is typical DHL, Mike. If that makes you feel any better.
That makes you feel any better. Because we were silly people. We should have worked harder anyway.
But Gavin also had this question when we were talking about forecasting. In this day and age where organizations and people managers need to be much more reactive, how accurate are these forecasts? You know, who in April 2020 could have guessed, you know, what's happening now? 2022,
right.
Sorry.
Okay, that's a good question. It's not accurate in terms of what can, you know, you can't predict what a person can do, but you can predict what people will do. It's the same thing. So I can't predict that I will definitely do business with X, Y, or Z. But what I can predict is if I go out to 100 companies that are like X, Y, and Z, and I do these things to them, I will convert this many. And that is incredibly accurate. Massively so. When we do this for our clients, it's like, well, you'll never get that right, will you? Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. Yeah. Over time, you gather the data and you can, it's called in statistics, reversion to the mean, I think, something like that. It means the more data you collect, the more accurate it will be, pretty much. Right?
But also similarly, that's why we have things like war chests, which we've spoken about before. That's why there are other things in your business. This is just to help you make ideas. You still do need backups because everybody knows as a business owner.
Tactical BD is there for you. You can always go out and get some revenue. Do it about, you know, candidate specking or vacancy scraping. But strangely, the better your strategic business development and therefore the stronger your relationship pipeline, the less tactical BD you need to do. So at the end of my business in the 90s, hardly did any tactical BD at all. Mostly came from relationships, from our strategic BD. Much more in control, better quality clients, more vacancies, like huge upswing in our turnover and profits.
Okay. Well, Gavin said that makes sense. So thank you very much, Gavin, for your question. Okay, Mike, we are pretty much at the end of our time now. So in a second, I'm going to come to you for the top tip, somebody who wants to sort of build this pipeline, what they should do first. But before then, can we talk about next week's show? Because I'm really excited about next week's show because I have a bad reputation around podcasting and that I'm not a fan of it. So I'm really
Unnecessarily
excited.
so, because that's not true, is it? We love podcasting.
I love podcasting, but everyone thinks I don't because I love LinkedIn Live so much, you see.
Right. Well, we've got Rob Tyson coming on. He's a recruiter. And he also happens to be the #1 podcaster in his sector, which is mining. And he's going to come on and talk to us. Well, you can ask any questions you like, really. Obviously, building up that position didn't happen overnight. He did things to make that happen. But he's going to talk to you about how podcasting works for him, what he does, what's involved in it, and the results that he gets from it, how it wins new clients, which it does. But funnily enough, if you want to develop a relationship pipeline, one of the ways that you can do that is through a podcast, weirdly.
Yeah.
And I'll be picking up on that next week when we talk to Rob. So
okay, fantastic. So that is definitely going to be a good show. So I hope you guys can carry on. So Mike, top tip now. People are watching this think, Mike, we've spoken about a lot today. What would you say is your top tip for them today?
Can I go with 2 top tips?
I don't like it when you do this.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
I'm going to do it anyway. It's my show,
It's my show.
Watch the show, if you haven't, on tactical and strategic business development. Kirsty, put the link in the comments. Check it out, because it kind of makes sense then. All falls into place, right? The second tip, I think, is if you don't have one now, build a revenue pipeline. You basically got 3 different versions of it, and you'll begin to be able to predict how accurate that's going to be, which gives you some visibility into the future. And I think that's a useful thing to do. So,
okay, fantastic.
That would be my tip.
So, guys, thank you so much. Barry made this comment earlier about he hoped that I could hold it together today, unlike last week when I lost it at the end. So I did, Barry. I held it together.
Oh, I don't know why that happened, because if you watch the video on YouTube, I don't think that.
No, it was all your work, wasn't it? So I would like to say thank you to everybody who's watched us today and everybody who's got involved with the comments. It always makes our show amazing when everybody kind of gets in and tries to catch Mike out, which is what I really love.
Oh, one more piece of big news. We've got some big news for you next week as well.
We do. Yes, we've got
big news for next week.
We got some stuff happening. Okay, so Mike, thanks to you as well. And I guess we'll see everyone next week.
See you all next week, guys. Thank you, Kirsty. A pleasure.